is Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition for the games. Start from Thursday, January 15th, 2026 to Sunday, January 18th. I am Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host, Jim Sarro.
Hey Bob, I'm looking forward to talking about Horizon League basketball. We've had a lot of movement in the standings, and we got a couple more big games that are going to help give us some clarity on who's going to win this thing. So let's get after it.
Indeed, we do. But first, of course, as you all know, the Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition is sponsored by the Horizon League. It reminds you to make your plans to be in Indy March 8th through the 10th for the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. After you get all of the insights from us here at the Horizon Roundtable, visit horizonleague.com for championships information, merchandise, life and league stories, golden hour content, and much more. Remember, March starts here in Indianapolis at Corteva Coliseum, March 8th through the 10th. And so let's just get into it. So Thursday, January 15th, 6:30 Eastern. IU Indy struggling, winless in the conference so far, and things aren't going to get any easy for them because they host Robert Morris. And I don't know if they got anything for him because Robert Morris is definitely looking for a bounce back win after losing to Purdue Fort Wayne at home. And again, I feel like Robert Morris is good. Definitely has a decided advantage top to bottom as far as going up against a team like IU Indy, who I feel like they are going on the cusp of getting over the hump. It just hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it's going to happen here either.
Yeah, it's really hard to know when IU Indy is going to break through because their weaknesses remain the same. They are not a great shooting team, and they are not a great rebounding team. And in this particular game, Robert Morris is top three in the league in rebounding margin, so I'd expect them to have their way on the glass a little bit.
Oh yeah,
The thing that could help IU Indy is that Robert Morris, does allow a fair amount of points per game, so there isn't an opportunity to outscore them. They can get some shots going, and they just came off of this last game against Milwaukee where Kyler DiAugustino and Mitchell McGuire shot really well, and the two of them were the shining
McGuire
stars
Mitchell.
offensively. McGuire, I'm sorry, it's those alliteration names, but just I was just so happy I could say Giovanni Mosheri without because it doesn't look like that
Yeah,
on paper. So McGuire, I apologize, but I do want to respect that you just came off a really nice individual game against the Panthers. So there's an opportunity to get those guards rolling against Robert Morris and maybe outscore him, get the system going. But yeah, both
absolutely.
teams, neither team is actually playing that great. And Robert Morris, though, still in it at in league play. They're 3-4, and they need a win.
Yeah.
IU Indy is, they're at 0-8, like they're just gearing up for the March run, but Robert Morris is still in there and still a chance at a home court seed. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of struggling teams, at 7 p.m. Eastern, we got Youngstown State, who, if you had told me they were gonna be down at the bottom of the league standings at the beginning of the season, I would have told you were crazy. But they're kind of struggling, and they're going to the Nutter Center. They're going to play a Wright State team that has basically the effectively treated the Nutter Center like it's the Terror Dome.
yeah, Wright State has been whipping teams. I mean, that is when they
I mean,
say,
that is like the black hole the Nutter Center is this year.
the old saying, take them behind the woodshed. Like the Nutter Center is the woodshed right now because they
Oh
are
yeah.
they're putting teams. I mean, everybody. Green Bay, Oakland went in there, got just absolutely annihilated. I forget what was the season that started out where hopes were high for the Penguins and they beat Wright State right out of the gate. What year was that? Was that last year? Was that 2 years ago, Bob?
I'm not
Oh wait,
sure.
that
I
was
I
this
think
year. That was
oh,
this. No, Bob, that was this year.
I know
The
it was
one
this
loss
year.
that
I know that's kind of Youngstown State's only saving grace is that Youngstown State beat Wright State already, but it was only a 1 point win, and I feel like the momentum has shifted. A lot's happened since that last victory.
doesn't it feel like a ton has happened? Wright State has accelerated to 6-1, and in that time, Youngstown's gone 1-5 since
Yeah,
then. And so it just is such a wild thing that what can happen to a basketball team during the course of the season. But you have to, even though it's the Terror Dome, as you've referred to it, you do have to respect that the one team that was able to give Wright State a loss this year was
Yeah.
the Penguins. So we'll see what this game looks like. But I definitely, it's two teams that want to play some defense.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
don't expect a high scoring game.
Again, it's weird because it's not even that Youngstown State's playing poorly. It's just a matter of bad luck on their part. There are a few losses in there that could have easily been wins because they were so close. And I feel like that's kind of been Youngstown State's MO throughout the conference season is they've had all of these super close games, and that pendulum could have swung multiple times. And that 2-5 conference record that they're sporting right now could easily not be the opposite, truth be told.
Yeah, the one thing I do worry about there is, you know, it's a historically been a guard league, and they don't have a ton of consistent guard play. I mean, this last game against Fort Wayne that they lost, I wouldn't say their guards really gave them much in that game. So they're going to need
Sure.
their guys to step up. They've got some talented players, so I'm not ruling out Youngstown State by any stretch of the
No
imagination.
way.
And it would be, it would be great for the league to keep that jumbled mess going if the Penguins could get a win here, because it would help them start to salvage their season, and also take
Sure.
the team that's one game up in the standings and bring them back. I'm not saying I want that to happen, but it would be fun for the league if you're watching basketball. I'm not rooting
Sure.
against you, Wright State Raiders. I'm just saying it'd be good for the
Yeah.
basketball.
All right, well, let's move on to the second 7 p.m. Eastern game, and it's Oakland, and they're heading. This is they're heading to the Wisconsin trip, and they're starting out at Milwaukee. And honestly, if you could tell, if you have any idea who's going to be in their front court for this game and in the near future, your guess is as good. You're smarter than I am, because it seems like the injury bug has just killed Milwaukee this year. You already got John Lovelace, who's out for the season. We've already talked about Lovelace, and we already talked about Seth Hubbard being out for the season. You've had Faison Fields, who's been out for a stretch of time, and now you add in Danilo Jovanovic, who's also been out. And you're going up against an Oakland team who is, I mean, they had a really good end of the game against Wright State. Hopefully they took that last part of the game against Wright State, and they're using that as kind of a kind of turnaround point, because you know probably 30 minutes of that game against Wright State was just not good for them at all.
No, it wasn't. And in this particular game, as they come to your point, Bob, about the Panthers are pretty beat up right now, in particular in the front court. And then you think about what is the strength of this Oakland team. They
Yeah.
have those three really good front court players. So it's going to be on the Chandler Jacksons and Murchisons of the world, and Sekou Konas. Like, these guys are going to get an
And
opportunity
Tate
here to prove
McKenzie,
their
don't
worth.
forget him.
And I think Tate McKenzie is a pretty solid player. The challenge that I think a guy like him is going to face is the same thing he ran into a week ago in Green Bay, in that Oakland's guys really aren't that big. I mean, they're big, but they're not
Yeah, sure.
6'10", so they're able to maneuver a little bit. Where he might not be able to guard because he'll have to be
No.
out on the floor a little bit, a little bit away from the basket. So we'll see what happens, but definitely the strength of the Oakland team is going up against the current weakness of the Panther team. And it's not that they don't have good players; it's just that their best ones, the ones that they would have been relying on,
It's
may
not that
not
they
play
have
in this
good.
game.
It's not that they don't have talent. It's just they have the talent is shrinking, both metaphorically, as in roster, and physically, as if they're getting smaller. So,
That's a good way to
uh,
put it.
yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the next 7 p.m. Eastern game. This is going to be Green Bay. Green Bay is riding high, and they're going to play Cleveland State, that is riding low and riding with no rebounding, apparently. I mean,
Yeah,
this has kind of
Cleveland
been a
State.
central theme with Cleveland State this season, is that they're just getting killed on the boards. If there is an offense, if there is a they, I believe they are one of the worst teams when it comes to defending the defensive rebounds. Teams left and right get offensive rebounds on them like nobody's business. We saw it against Oakland. They just got destroyed on the offensive glass. You saw it against Detroit Mercy. That's how I mean, this was, and the other thing with Cleveland State is that when their defense, when you have a defense like theirs, your offense has to be 100% on point. And when you have a series of miscues, as Cleveland State did against both Detroit Mercy and Oakland offensively, and you don't have the defense to kind of make up for those miscues, it's always a tough road to hoe. And then you look at a Green Bay team that is definitely going to be looking to take advantage of that for sure.
It's interesting to me for this game with Green Bay versus Cleveland State. Green Bay, number 2 in the Horizon League conference play in team field goal percentage, 51% shooting from the floor. Cleveland State, KenPom rating on defense, number 357 out of 365. And then if you think about what Cleveland State wants to do and has been doing with shooting a lot of three-pointers in conference play, Green Bay 7 games in, number 1 in 3-point field goal percentage, defense 31.1% allowed. So what is the strength of Cleveland State is a strength of Green Bay. And what is a weakness of Cleveland State, their defense, is a strength of Green Bay. Their offense, Green Bay's offensive efficiency is relatively high, 163rd in the country and probably one of the top 5 in the Horizon League on the season. And in Horizon League play, is probably one of the most efficient offenses. What Green Bay needs, though, in this particular game, they're going on the road. They are 2-1 in road games in league play this year, but they are now coming out. They're riding high, 4-game win streak. But you're going against a team that's 1-6 in league play. If we talk about in the past, this has to be a maturity game for them. Are they mature enough to go on a road against a team that they should be able to compete with and potentially win against, and then handle their business? Are they going to play 40 minutes of basketball where they had big leads and then had to hold on? Can they put somebody away earlier? These are the things I'm looking for Green Bay in this particular game. But the matchup definitely on paper favors Green Bay in terms of what they do well versus what Cleveland State does well. So should be a good one for the Phoenix. And also for Phoenix, they'll get to see Chevalier Emery and Foster Wonders, both who either played for or were committed to Green Bay at one time. So that'll be kind of
There you go. All right, well, let's move on to the last 7 p.m. Eastern game on Thursday, and that is Detroit Mercy, and they're going to play Northern Kentucky. Detroit Mercy got themselves a good win against Cleveland State. This is going to be a big road test for them because they have it because most of their success has been a good chunk of their success has been in Callahan Hall, Youngstown State win notwithstanding. Northern Kentucky, they want to kind of bounce back because they got back into that game and against they got back into the Green Bay game, and they had a shot. And I think with Northern Kentucky, the way that they're set up is going to cause some real headaches for Detroit Mercy. I think Detroit Mercy's only saving grace is I believe that when we constantly talk about the front court in the Horizon League. I feel like Detroit Mercy has kind of a slight advantage on Northern Kentucky on this front. I think the other big thing is going to be to contain a guy like Cale Robinson, which Green Bay was pretty good at doing in the win. Cale Robinson hit some. Had Cale Robinson had a few more shots fall, that would have been a different story for the Phoenix. Because it certainly was a different story, because it was certainly a story against Milwaukee. And I feel like that's going to definitely be a focal point for Detroit Mercy to kind of hone in on him and try to figure out a way to contain him.
Yeah, Cale Robinson is a very dynamic player, and honestly, Green Bay didn't even defend him. The rim defended him. I mean, he had a couple that were down. It looked like they were going to be down, and they turned the magnets on just in time and kicked the ball back out. So that was good for the Phoenix. But all kidding aside, he's a really dynamic player. I mean, he had a great weekend shooting from the top of the key in the state of Wisconsin. So we'll see how he does. Detroit's defense has been pretty good for the season in terms of field goal percentage allowed.
Mhm.
So I think um, that could be good for them. Detroit though, so something I took note of in the Northern Kentucky defense, Milwaukee made a really big point to get the ball to the corners or the short corner, and they had a lot of success doing that, especially if they're the right guys receive the ball in those positions. Sometimes you get the ball to the
Sure.
right spot, but to the wrong player,
Mhm.
and they had tremendous success shooting from the corners. And Detroit Mercy still is the number one 3-point shooting team in the Horizon League at 41.3%. So there's an opportunity for Detroit Mercy to exploit the 3-point shot. And then, of course, they're just a tremendous rebounding team, better than NKU has been. And
Sure.
so, it's kind of a see ball, get ball. What happens with after that? You don't know, but give yourself enough chances at it. You have an opportunity to pull out a game. And Detroit at 4-3, and Northern Kentucky at 5-3. This one's like kind of like at the Masters. There's moving day. This one's
Sure.
all about moving day, like because this is going to get some
Absolutely.
separation in the middle of that pack. So it's a good game to check out on Thursday night.
Absolutely. All right. Well, before we get into the weekend games, want to remind you again, make your plans to be in Indy March 8th through the 10th for the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. After you get all of the insights from us here at the Horizon Roundtable, visit horizonleague.com for championships information, merchandise, life in the league stories, golden hour content, and much more. Remember, March starts here in Indianapolis at Corteva Coliseum. March 8th through the 10th. So while we're on the subject of Indianapolis, let's start with the Saturday game at 2 p.m. Eastern. We just talked about Detroit Mercy. They're heading to Indianapolis to go play IU Indy. And hopefully, I have this very strange feeling that this trip to Indianapolis for Detroit Mercy is going to end a little different than the one from last year. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, Detroit. You talk about 3-point shooting, number one in the league, number 11 for 3-point field goal defense.
Hmm.
IUND. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the game right there. And Detroit, great rebounding team. IU Indy struggling on the glass. So I'm not really sure what it's going to take, for IU Indy to give them a good game. I don't remember the game last year, so maybe for those of us that don't recall, was it some sort of double overtime debacle, or was it a complete
No, it
blowout? Like
was
what?
no, if it was IU Indy destroying Detroit Mercy by over 40.
Ah,
Yeah, it was a
yes.
completely yeah, so you'll you'll be forgiven if you understood that. But I also like to point out the fact that Detroit Mercy had no problem with IU Indy at the beginning of at the beginning of December. Won by 14, had very little trouble. This is actually you mentioned the 3-pointers for Detroit Mercy because remember in the non-conference, Detroit Mercy was absolutely putrid when it came to the 3-point shot. And then all of a sudden they played IU Indy and things got a lot better for them and they've actually taken that and been able to carry that forward throughout the conference season. So I don't see them having a problem with doing that again this game. Not to mention the fact, as again in this case of just like the advantage that Detroit Mercy has against Northern Kentucky, they have a much better front court, and I feel like that even though shots aren't falling, I feel like they're gonna dominate the glass.
Yeah, this is gonna be a tough task for the Jaguars. But as the old saying goes, that's why they play the game. Detroit really needs this game, though. When they're sitting
Sure,
there right now, 4-3 in the league, this is one that they're really going to need. You know, so we'll see
sure.
what happens, especially because they're coming in from they're making the trip from Northern Kentucky over to Indianapolis. So depending on what happens to them on Thursday night, I mean they're either going to be coming in with a lot of momentum, or they're going to be coming in really desperate for a win. But either way, this is not just going to be oh, hey, the guys aren't going to be into it. They're not. I mean, you're going to get a good effort from
Oh,
Detroit
absolutely.
Mercy either way, based on what they've got going on this week.
Sure, absolutely. All right, well, let's move on to the second 2 p.m. Eastern game. Youngstown State is heading to the Wolstein Center to play Cleveland State. Feel like this is a rivalry game. Feel like this is one of those throw the records out games. But this is also a game where, to your point earlier, Youngstown State is really good at playing defense, and Cleveland State really isn't.
Bob, I'm old enough to remember when Youngstown State wasn't that great and you were begging for them to get themselves together so that you could have a rivalry with Cleveland State, who was doing
Yes.
reasonably well at the time. I remember those conversations on this very podcast. They weren't with me, but they were had on this
They
podcast.
were years ago. They were there, mind you. They were years ago. This is before Dennis Gates got to Cleveland State and Jared Calhoun got to Youngstown State. So they was a very hard late 2010s. I'll just throw that out there.
Yep.
Very
But
hard for
now
me.
you're getting it is a rivalry game, and both teams, they need this victory. I mean,
Sure.
you see where they're at in the standings. Cleveland State 1-6 in league play, and their only win is against the winless Jaguars right now. And Youngstown has played so many close games; they got to break through and get a W at some point in time. So
They do.
um, there's going to be a little juice behind this, even if the records don't make it seem like it's that important of a game. There's going to be a little juice in this rivalry. But yeah, Cleveland State. I I'm thinking Youngstown, they do play pretty good defense. I mean, the opportunity against Youngstown still remains the same. If they don't protect the ball, you can play
Yeah.
the best defense in the world, but if you're not getting any shots, it's going to be hard to win.
True. All right, well, let's move on to the 7 p.m. Eastern game, and we got a return matchup. Robert Morris and Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky won at Moon Township at the end of December. We're going to do it all over again. This time they're at Truist Arena, and I feel like just like it, and Northern Kentucky got away with the got to win away with the road win, and they got the hometown crowd behind them. So I feel like this is definitely going to be an opportunity for them as well. I feel like this is a lot more evenly matched, just like it was against in the first game at the end of December, and I feel it's even more so, especially since you got Robert Morris and Northern Kentucky, who are again still kind of jockeying for position in the upper half of those standings.
I think what you said about it being pretty evenly matched is really appropriate because statistically, yeah, okay, Robert Morris rebounding, that stands out. But anything else, like both teams are, they're good at many things, but they're not the top of the league in too many of the statistical categories. And so you have two really good teams. And what I was thinking is something I said about Northern Kentucky a few weeks ago. I said, at some point in time, you winners find a way to win. And they went on a
Sure.
little hot streak again after I said that. And I feel like that's where Robert Morris is right now, where they're playing good basketball. They're just
Hmm.
not playing good enough basketball to win consistently. And you're sitting there at 3-4, 1/3 of the way through league play, and you've played well. Statistically, you've
Yeah.
played well, and yet you don't have the result. So at some point in time, it's the water rises to its level or whatever, but they got to find a way to win because winners figure out a way to win, and teams that don't, win, they find a way to not win. And
Yeah,
Robert Morris has to figure out
exactly.
which one they want to be. But it is an evenly matched game, and I do like the home team. Even though Truist is a huge arena and their crowds aren't what they used to be, I just like
Hmm.
the home cooking. And NKU has played a whole bunch of home games, and they had a lot of success in the arena this year.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the Sunday games. All right. So we got Milwaukee going to Purdue Fort Wayne when last at 2 p.m. Eastern, when last these two teams met. Milwaukee ran Purdue Fort Wayne out of the gym, but I think that was like 3 or 4 players ago for Milwaukee. Things are going to look a little different this time.
Yeah, it's a lot has changed, and quite frankly, Giovanni and I talked about it on the regular podcast. The two losses to start the new year or the restart of conference play for Purdue Fort Wayne really has galvanized them because they've gone on a little winning streak since they took those L's, and those L's were not pretty for them.
No.
Milwaukee, though, the one thing that helps Milwaukee in this particular matchup is you think about where their lack of depth is right now. It's not their guard play. They have an abundance of very skilled and capable
Sure.
players, whether it's the young guys, whether it's Dorcius. They've got some guys there. It's in the front court, but it's not a strength of Purdue Fort Wayne. So we'll
That's
see.
probably
You
very
know,
helpful in their particular instance, but And so
Yes.
that's definitely going to come into play moving forward. I caution though that the big thing for them, for Milwaukee, in that win was, I mean, and honestly, I think it's ironic that they out rebounded the heck out of Purdue Fort Wayne, but two of the guys who were part of that rebounding core are Jovanovic and Fields, and I'm not 100% sure that's going to be the case. However, I should point out the fact that there are going to be two players that did very well rebounding that will be in the rotation and will be available to menace Purdue Fort Wayne, and that's Aaron Franklin, who had 13 rebounds, and Sekou Kana, who had 9.
Yeah, those guys are getting an opportunity, and Franklin, he also had a good game against IU Indy this
Sure,
weekend, and so he, you know, he's probably a fifth year senior, something like that. Like he's a smart guy.
sure.
Seems like I've heard a little bit of his post game interview. Like seems like an all around well rounded great guy,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's a good basketball player. And that guy's built, so he's got an
oh yeah.
opportunity. Statistically, what stands out to me here: Fort Wayne, most 3-pointers attempted in league play. They've attempted 235. That's even more than IU Indy. They're hitting them at 35%. Milwaukee, though, number 2 in 3-point field goal defense, 31.3%, right? Just a touch behind Green Bay. So, it's going to come down to who does their thing better. Does
Sure.
Milwaukee defend 3-point line, or does Fort Wayne, who likes to take a lot of threes, are they going to have a hot day? Because when Fort Wayne is hot, there's really nothing you can do to stop it.
All right. Well, that brings us to, we're saving the best for last, Jim. 2 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Oakland is heading to Green Bay. And this actually may be a battle for possibly second place, maybe even tie for first, depending upon how things go for Wright State.
This is, Oakland 2 weeks in a row, Sunday afternoon, mega game for them. This one on the road. Green Bay, both teams are currently 5-2 as we record this.
Hmm.
Green Bay, a little slower on offense. They want to play slow. They want to, make you work. Oakland, they're going to play fast. I mean, their tempo is number 32 in the country. Green Bay's tempo is 349. So this is two different styles. Green Bay, super, super effective, offense. Their field goal shooting has been really, really good. And Oakland, has a little bit of advantage with the big guys that they have.
Sure.
Those big guys are going to have to be able to, play in space, though, because you've got Caden Wilkins and Marcus Hall who can play from the perimeter. So
Hmm.
it's going to be a fun matchup. I think that this is two pretty even teams. It would be really great for Green Bay Phoenix fans to show up for this one and maybe make the environment a little more difficult for the Golden Grizzlies. That could be, honestly, when you think about the teams, like that maybe is the only advantage, that like both teams are pretty good. So what do you
Yeah.
need? Do you need home court could be the thing, and it's super hard if you don't get the win against Oakland on your home court. It's really hard to go to the arena later in the season
Oh
and
yeah.
rectify that. That's a tough place to play.
Absolutely.
So Phoenix fans got to get to the Crest Event Center. But I like this matchup. Both teams are very, very evenly matched. So
All right.
it'll be fun.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for us. All right. So next week, as we have been, now that we no longer have any Monday games, we're going to be recording these on Monday nights and probably releasing these on Monday nights. Give you a couple of days to listen to them. But until then, HorizonRoundtable.com. That is where you can find all episodes of this podcast, as well as the regular podcast, as well as all of our articles. So tune in next week. Until then, thank you all for listening.